Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko with you, and joined, as always, by Tariq Spence, WDKX. Hey, Tariq.
Hey, how's it going, Bill? How you doing, Duffy?
Good.
Pat, what do you got on? Man of many words.
Very Red Wings week, right? I figured I'd go with the Plates jersey and the Flower City hat, which is now, as of earlier this week, not timely at all because we're done with the Twins, right?
Yeah, so Tariq, let's talk about that off the top here. It wasn't like it was totally unexpected because the minor leagues have been going through this big change. Still, the 17 years with the Twins, and I don't think the thought crossed my mind that this was over.
No, neither did I. I think we knew there was a possibility we were going to lose some. I think there was a possibility we knew we were going to lose some minor league teams. But because the Red Wings draw so well, because they have such a great fan base here in Rochester, we didn't think we were on that cutting edge. Well, to the Minnesota Twins, we were. So, I mean, at this particular time frame, I mean, that's what's so terrible about it. We never even got a last season. Like, the last season was the last season. And so, I understand the financial concerns. I understand what the Twins are going through, and hopefully there'll be another franchise that'll come in and be a part of this. But you go back to, I start with the Orioles when I first got here, and then went to the Twins. But it's just the disappointment. I was kind of more shocked than anything. I really didn't think it was going to happen to the Red Wings.
Hey, Pat, it's like an organizational free-for-all right now. This isn't just a Rochester issue. I think 5 of the 14 teams in the International League have a working agreement. 4 of those is because they're owned by the Major League team. Everybody else is out there scrambling and essentially in the same spot Rochester's in.
I mean, yeah, you got Cleveland, just off the top of my head, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, the Nationals, and the Blue Jays that are in play for the Red Wings. All the smartest people I've been hearing, it's the Nationals as the club front runner, and then maybe the Pirates. But, I mean, Tariq, to your point about I wish we had a last season with Minnesota. I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but did we need it? Like, I mean, the Minnesota years in Rochester have been pretty forgetful. And I was a kid. I was Orioles all the way through. And the greatest nights of my youth were going down to Silver Stadium to watch when the Orioles would come to town and they would play the Red Wings. And I got to see Cal Ripken Jr. in person, and Roberto Alomar and Albert Bell and Brady Anderson and all these people. And not only that, you had legitimate Major League Baseball all-stars that were starting their careers in Rochester and working their way up. I mean, you can count on one hand the name of recognizable casual fan baseball players that started here in Rochester and made names for themselves in Major League Baseball. And that's not the fault of the Red Wings. That's the fault of the Twins. I'm looking forward to a new affiliate, so maybe we can get that magic back like we had from, 71 to 2002, 61 to 2002.
But you know what's interesting about this whole thing is that it's not the attachment like the Amerks are to the Sabres. It's a different attachment. To your point, Duffy, the fact that we didn't have major superstars here in Rochester for very long, if at all, it just goes to the testament of how well run the Red Wings are, which would mean that would be an organization you would want to keep around because their fan base is so strong, because the fact that they do great jobs in selling out how many games throughout the year. It's just a hardcore base that we have here in Rochester, which makes us lucrative for other teams going forward. Toronto, Nationals, you mentioned them before. Take your pick, or I guess they'll pick us. But at any rate, it's shocking. We moved on. We survived from Baltimore to Minnesota. Now we'll survive from Minnesota to the next team.
Some of this is our perspective, too, because Pat brings up the whole Major League thing when the team used to come, and those guys are so reluctant to come to Rochester and play that game anyway. And all of those games are gone. And the other thing is, Minnesota did leave an imprint. It was pointed out to me that there were like 6 players on the World Series rosters this year who had spent time in Rochester as members of the Minnesota Twins. So some of it's our perspective. But, man, things are changing, and almost changing too fast for us to get a handle on, don't you think, Pat? You're wearing the FC.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. It's only because I was late and I couldn't find my Plates cap, and I also wanted to wear my Luke Easter jersey, but that's a whole other thing. But look, it's not just Red Wings baseball, right? It's not just minor league baseball. You're seeing this in the AHL, too. I mean, when I was a kid, it was nothing to see the Sabres, first-round draft pick every year come up through Rochester, and you watch these guys star, Martin Biron, over and over and over again, right? Barnaby and all these guys. You don't see that in Rochester anymore either, right? Like these are strictly development leagues, and if they can pass the highest level and get them into the pros, that's what they're going to do. I still like going to the games. I love watching the baseball. I love watching the hockey. It's just, you're right. We got to get used to it. It's a different perspective.
We're at the Rochester Press Box, and we're talking Buffalo Bills next.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay and Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
Thanks for joining us, and welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, talking Buffalo Bills coming off their biggest win of the season and heading into a tough late afternoon game against the Arizona Cardinals, Pat.
Yeah, 3 things scare me about this game. 1, whoever is running the football for the Arizona Cardinals as the running back. 2, Kyler Murray. Did you see I saw a statistic earlier this season. There was no one better passing rating-wise inside the 30-yard line than Kyler Murray all season. He's like Josh Allen inside the red zone, but 10 yards deeper. And then Budda Baker, safety for the Arizona Cardinals, is having a quiet to us because we're on the East Coast, unbelievable season. I sat down and watched 2 Cardinals games at points this season, and those are the 3 things that jump out. But they're also, much like the Bills, and maybe more the way the Bills used to be, it seems they play to their competition every single game. You can tell the coaching staff is still a little bit green because there are mistakes where you go, whoa. And you can tell that Kyler Murray is still pretty young. Yet, I don't know, man. Like, this game is winnable as long as you can get control early and keep control throughout the game. You don't have to be spectacular. You just have to be able to outduel a second-year quarterback and a coaching staff that's still getting used to what's going on there.
If the defense shows up half the way they did to Russell Wilson last week, the Bills should have no problem with this. The fact that Russell Wilson was knocked down the most, not this season, but by any quarterback in the NFL in that game, shows how much Leslie Frazier's defense was able to just totally throw them off kilter. Now, I get it. Kyler Murray is a younger version of him. They've got a couple more weapons at the wide receiver position that are pretty dangerous themselves. But I'm telling you, the defense really did a fantastic job. Now, the consistency with the offense and the running game, which I've been waiting for a long time, showed up. That got you your 44 points. I think you can do that again. You're going to have to duplicate the same thing with a faster running back with a hell of an arm.
So here's the problem, though. It's matchups, right? Like the Bills' defense matched up really, really well against Seattle because you didn't have to cover tight ends across the middle, and they weren't going to run the ball. They had to activate a guy off the practice squad just to have enough bodies to run. A.J. Klein, the linebacker that's been a disaster all season, should have been Defensive Player of the Week. 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He had a bunch of tackles for loss. He can't play in coverage. He can't play the run, but he can pin his ears back and go get Russell Wilson. You saw it. When now he has to account for not only being able to rush the passer, but cover and watch the run game, you got serious problems. The Bills matched up way better defensively with Seattle than they do against Arizona.
There's something, a dynamic here that I don't quite get. I pay attention to the power rankings. I know we talked about this before. Just about everybody's got Buffalo ranked ahead of Arizona, but Arizona's favored by 1.5 in this game. And they say, well, yeah, it's because it's in Arizona, but there's no fans. I don't get the dynamic right now of factoring in home field advantage without fans into these NFL odds, Tariq.
I think it's the travel. What's so great about McDermott is that he's very technical when it comes to the travel. I know a few games this year they've lost. They're on the road. They've been great at home, but I think he's got them focused, ready to play, and it's the travel of going into the West Coast and that type of thing, that advantage.
So let's pick it. I'll give it to you first, Tariq, at 1.5. Who do you like?
Arizona by a field goal.
Pat?
I think if you have that performance against Seattle, you beat them. You've been beating teams in unconventional ways all season long. You can do it on the ground. You can do it through the air. You've been doing it defensively. You've been doing it offensively. I think that Sean McDermott is smarter than people have been giving him credit for, including myself. I think he finds a way to do it, and I think they do it by a point. I think they straight up do it up.
Okay, I'm with Tariq. I like Cardinals by 3 because I think the Bills are coming off their best played game of the year. It's tough to duplicate that 2 in a row. And the Cardinals are coming at this from the other angle. They lost to Miami in a real tough one. They're at home. I'll give it a real good game, and the Cardinals by 3. We are the Rochester Press Box. Like it or not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
All of these things show Josh Allen has a strive for greatness inside of him.
Falcon Around with Carl Falk. New episodes every Tuesday on Rock Sports Now.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Are you facing criminal charges from a DWI and feel that you never imagined it could happen to you? Contact attorneys with years of experience as prosecutors and defenders. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today for a free consultation. You can put your trust in us.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. This segment of the Press Box, like it or not, brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law Firm, attorneys with years of experience defending the accused. Don't go unprepared. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today. Tariq, let me go here first. Like it or not, what happened with the Notre Dame Clemson game? You can attack this either with the game or the aftermath. What do you think of that football game last week?
Listen, the game was absolutely amazing. As a matter of fact, I think the eyes were so big because people were waiting to watch Dave Chappelle on Saturday Night Live. And they were catching the end of it. And that's how it kind of went into the news and then went into that. I digress. I'll go back. I think what happened at the end of that game just shows you how great college football is. The problem with it is it wasn't with Lawrence. Okay. The second problem with it is that it wasn't on a neutral field. It was obviously in Notre Dame. The third problem I have with it is how many security guards are able to put their hands up to stop thousands of high school and college kids coming onto a field. That is not doing this is not going to stop thousands of college kids rushing onto the field for their biggest upset in about 30 freaking years. So I don't know. I think this is, and I'll get to this a little bit later on with unfinished business. I think that precedence is going to set up a lot of different games if we have college basketball or anything else where there will be no fans. Because emotionally, young people are not able to realize that they're going to be super spreaders. Heck, we just went through this with the whole thing with the Dodgers and Justin Turner. A lot of people get caught up in the emotion. They want to be a part of the celebration. These kids rushed onto the field. My wife was a nurse. She sat right next to me. I'm just like, this does not look good. This is not a good health scene right now with kids having masks on, the others not. I hope they don't have any issues, but I was really nervous that I think it'll shut things down for future games.
Since when does Notre Dame rush the field or the court for anything? Like, I know you beat the number one team in the country, but you were also number 4, and you're Notre freaking Dame. Like, just that. Forget the super spreader. You look stupid for doing that.
Highest rated game, though. Highest rated college football game. And everybody saw that incident afterwards because you couldn't turn away.
Yeah, I can feel it too. I mean, the way the game went, it was overtime. It was really exciting. It was a very compelling game. Pat, like it or not, the NHL trying to plan a January 1st return with some caveats.
I don't think it's possible. The word is we're going to have multiple hub cities where like teams will practice for 2 weeks at home and then go to these hub cities and then they'll play. All right, so the only way you're able to do this is if you have a Canadian-only division because you have Canadian teams that aren't going to be able to cross the border. You can't bring Americans into Canada, but it screws divisions all the way up, and I don't know if it's splittable. Look, the more you sit down and examine doing the NHL season without 2 giant bubbles in one country, the harder it becomes. 3 of your top 5 grossing teams when it comes to merchandise, I mean, ticket sales doesn't matter, but advertising, Toronto Maple Leafs, the Montreal Canadiens, and the Vancouver Canucks. They're going to be at a disadvantage if they're only playing each other over and over and over again. You're not going to see any of the American superstars up in Canada. And when I say American superstars, I mean Canadians that are playing for American teams. I love hockey. I want hockey badly. But unless you can do it where you're moving from city to city like the NFL is, or go complete double bubble like they did for the playoffs, I don't see how you get it done.
Hey, Tariq, I had to go back. We did this last week, too, talking about Steve Cohen's ownership of the New York Mets. He had a very impressive introduction, and I wanted to ask you again. This just looks like an up-and-coming franchise right now.
Well, let's see them sign somebody. You know, if between we taping this and you know, by the time it airs, let's see what they're really about. Like, he's asking for input from fans, which is great. You're going to have to wait until they actually get back to the diamond and start playing baseball. It's an issue before with money and how to spend money and who to spend money. It seems like that's not an issue anymore. They're going to plan on losing tons of money, hundreds of millions of dollars over the next 4 or 5 years or so as we get out of this pandemic. But I'm excited, but they haven't played a game yet. They've got to get the spring training. They've got to sign some guys. Stroman is great. They get Bauer, great. We need 2, maybe 1 or 2 bats. That's great. But now we have the money to do it as a man. It's my money. I'm just excited for it.
Well, it's like Stroman's all in already. He said, he was so impressed by the presentation. He says, all right, I'm in. That's a really good sign. Like it or not, presented by Ganguly Brothers Law. Unfinished Business is next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. McArdle's is open 7 days a week with dining available indoors and out, takeout and delivery. Come home to McArdle's.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box. Time for Unfinished Business. Pat, go.
Don't look now, but your UB Bulls football team is 2-0 after 2 nationally televised MACtion games. And you know how they got there? With players getting drafted in the NHL and getting national recognition? They did it by doing what Syracuse football refused to do for the last decade. For whatever reason, Syracuse football allowed multiple players from the greater Rochester area to get out and go sign with other schools. And we're not talking about just the kids that signed with major schools like Penn State and Notre Dame. We're talking kids that ended up going to schools like Rhode Island and Maine and UMass, and kids that all of a sudden made enough careers where they were either drafted or signed as undrafted free agents into the NFL. And as that happened, Syracuse started their decline into what might be their worst season of football ever. Meanwhile, UB did the exact opposite. Look, I only have so much time, so I can't name them all, but there are a ton of greater Rochester players that are on the roster at UB, and not only on the roster, starring on the roster. They didn't let that talent get out of town, and they're reaping the benefits for it. High school sports in the greater Rochester area, as much as it stinks that it's not happening right now, have become amazing over the last 10 years. Way better than when I played. And the school that decided to capitalize on it is the one that is now being recognized as the legitimate football team in upstate New York.
It doesn't surprise me the fact that at the end of the Notre Dame Clemson game that the kids would storm the field. They're young kids making decisions and an emotional moment. That's what the leadership of Notre Dame is supposed to be doing, preventing them from actually hurting themselves or possibly any other lawsuit that may take place. You remember the goalpost incidents where teams would have a big victory and kids would come on the field and tear down goalposts? What happened? Somebody got hurt, and now you can't tear down goalposts anymore. The main concern that I have now is people seem to believe that COVID-19 is over with, that we're out of this. Actually, no, it's actually going the other way. A number of colleges in our area have decided to go online for learning. So we're not through this all yet. I know they opened it up. I know different places have the opportunity to have their fans in attendance if they do. But if you're going to do that, just don't put them in the front row. Don't allow them to get down to near the field. Have them in the upper or the mezzanine fields and then keep them there. The problem with this whole COVID-19 issue is that it can spread from one person to the next. You don't want that affecting your team. I hope no one gets infected at Notre Dame, whether it's a player or a student. But if a player does get infected, it will affect their season the rest of the way. And that's not what the students really wanted. So the whole point of this is to keep them safe as possible. And for future games, you can have fans, but not in the front row.
Does anyone remember Britt McHenry? Former ESPN reporter went viral for publicly shaming a parking lot attendant for essentially not being as good as me. That didn't go over real well with her employers, but she did manage to parlay that into a job with Fox News, which seems to think that blonde entitlement is less of a crime than some of the rest of us do. Well, maybe that's along the lines of what Tony LaRussa was thinking. When he got pulled over in Phoenix for a DUI, he threw out the "Do you know who I am" card. The "Do you know who I am" card doesn't work as well as we think it does. And it's really only doubling down on the DUI, which is another not a good look. But there's another thing going on here. Tony LaRussa is 76 years old. He's making old people look bad. And he's making it more difficult for me to actually acquire my dream job of managing a Major League Baseball team. So cut it out. That's Unfinished Business. That is our show, guys.
You want to manage a Major League Baseball team? I didn't know that, though.
Why not? Who could? Everyone could do that.
Yeah, I could see you being manager.
That's it, Pat.
Nothing.
Well, I don't want to step on. Oh, look, here is the typical rule, right? If you have to ask, "Do you know who I am?" you already know the answer, so you just look like an idiot. Just move on. Keep going. It's over. It's done.
Making old people look bad. Hey, thanks, guys, and thanks all you for watching. We'll see you again next week on the Rochester Press Box.